Greetings and welcome to another Stranded Deep update video! That's right, Stranded Deep has been updated once again to version 0.06.00. We have a whole new version iteration, and this is a stable release for the first time in a while. Previously, we've been getting lots of experimental updates, which have been going into the experimental branch that you had to opt into. Now we have had all of those changes and additions implemented into the stable release branch, which means everybody on Steam will get it, which I think is going to be a little bit of a blessing and a curse. One of the first things you'll notice is the new map editor option on the main screen. I did a video covering this when it was implemented into the experimental branch. If you're interested in checking that out, then there is a link on screen at the moment. I'm not going to go over it again now because not a lot has changed, a few interface tweaks, but basically it's the same as it was before. It is a great addition though, and something that I'm really excited to see how that develops. Starting a new game, you now have access to the world grid. No longer is the world an infinite size, it is now a 5x5 grid of island and sea cells, which you can edit in the map editor, and of course you can drag them in and drop them wherever you want. You can actually do this whilst the game is live. You don't have to start a new game each time you want to change it. Look, we can drop in my wizarding island of wonderful stuff, basically anywhere on the grid that we want. As it happens, we can't drop it in because there's already one in place. There you go. You can only have one copy of an island, of a specific island, in your world at any given time, and we already have one right there. What I could do is I could drop in my mega island test here, which was a test to see if we could actually stitch two islands together into one large island. It kind of worked, but I'm not going to go into that right now because there were issues with it as well. So maybe I'll do another video on it in the future if there is enough interest. Of course, you can just ignore all of the map editing if you want to and just create a random world as you could before, although it will still be of a finite size, 5 cells by 5 cells. One of the most striking features brought over from the experimental build is the new ocean caustics. That is the waves. Look at these beautiful, beautiful waves just tossing my little life raft around. It's fantastic. I gushed about this at great length during my first experimental update video when this was implemented back in E2, 05.E2. You can go back and watch that video if you want to see me getting very carried away with how wonderful the sea and the ocean is. It also comes with tides, so the tides now rise and fall once a day or twice a day. I forget which exactly. They are diurnal, and I did look up what that meant, but I think it might be once a day, although tides are supposed to rise and fall twice a day, technically, I believe. But anyway, if you're interested, I'm sure there is information out there to clarify that. Let's just row into the island though, and we'll check out some of the other features. We're going to go over these things pretty quickly because it's all pretty much being covered in my various experimental update videos over the last few weeks. So if you've watched all of those, you'll probably have seen most of this already. And if you haven't, you'll probably get a better impression by going back and watching them now. Of course, one of the most important things to any survivor stranded on a desert island is crafting. And the old crafting system, which I rather liked actually, had you build a big old pile of stuff on the ground, and then you could open up a context menu that would tell you what you could craft with it. Well, that's all gone now, and it is replaced with the new crafting UI that we have on screen right now, which basically shows you all of the things that you can craft and allows you to select from them and then see if you have the materials that you need to craft that particular item. So gone is the guesswork that was there before. If you knew that something was possible to be crafted but you weren't sure exactly how to craft it, before you would just pile up a load of resources and see if it popped up. Now you can see exactly what is possible, and you just click on it and you can see what is required there. Fire pit, stick, lashings, the quantities. All of the guesswork has been taken out of it, which obviously makes it much more streamlined, and it's much easier and it's more accessible, and dare I say it, it's more similar to other games of a similar sort. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess is a matter of opinion. Personally, I did quite like the old system. I like the uniqueness of it, but at the end of the day, this new system is going to be much more accessible for new players, and it's going to mean that people don't have to go out of the game to look things up on wikis, which can only be a good thing. Similarly, the building system also utilizes the new UI, and we can build all of the new modular pieces of our buildings that were implemented in the recent E6 update to the experimental branch, which allowed us to build all of the cool new structures using tarps and corrugated iron and steel and driftwood and all sorts of other cool things that have been added. This really expands on the building options for constructing your little house, whatever it is, your little survival den on the island. It makes it much prettier. Hopefully there'll be actual gameplay effects of these implemented as well, which at the moment I don't think are there. There are new resources like the driftwood pile here, which can be broken up into sticks, so it's another source of sticks essentially for the island. And there are also things like scrap panels and steel girders and other things scattered liberally around the islands, which you can find and you can make use of in order to build these fantastic new structures. I did do a video of that building process, which you can find on my channel. A few things have changed from that video. For starters, buildings have now a structural kind of zone around them, which means you can't place a new building too close to an old building. You have to snap to it or have a particular distance. That also seems to apply to things like the rocks and stuff that are here on the beach, which I actually think is a little bit of a shame. I think we're kind of limiting creativity there, and I've actually done this off camera. I did quite a lot of building with the new system, and I was building around things like the sea bases and, like, you know, having bases that kind of like intersected with each other or crossed over each other. And I have to say, I don't quite understand that change, and I hope that that's something that maybe the developers will reconsider, because it seems to limit creativity, it seems to limit freedom with no actual mechanical benefit to the game. It doesn't seem to affect your chances of survival or anything. Yeah, okay, people can create broken things that don't look right, but I think I would rather have a little bit of freedom and accept that people can break that system and can produce things that don't look right in order to allow people to do things that are cool and perhaps unexpected and create interesting new bases and structures that the developers perhaps didn't envisage at the time when they were creating the various pieces. There are a couple of other differences between the building system as implemented in the stable release and the original building system, and that is primarily the removal of the panel system. So it used to be that you had to create panels and then you would create walls from those panels. Now you just create the walls directly from the resources. They've also done a first pass on increasing the amount of resources required to build each of these different things. So in the experimental version, we got everything super duper cheaply. In the stable version, you're going to have to work quite a bit harder to be able to build all of these things. Fortunately, you can always cheat, like I did here, and create your own island and then just liberally scatter building resources across the beach, or indeed the whole island, and give yourself everything you need to build whatever cool mad bases that you decide that you want to implement. It's probably worth mentioning at this point that whilst this is a new stable release, that is not to imply in any way that it is finished or indeed bug-free. There are still all sorts of oddities and strange things. For example, look, I can place a campfire underneath my base and set fire to it. Nothing much happens as a result of that. Now, I don't know if they're ever actually going to implement flammable structures. It would be awesome if they did. But that is just an example of the sort of things that you can expect. Stranded Deep is still early access. There are still a lot of unimplemented features and a lot of buggy features and a lot of things that don't quite work right or are a little bit weird or a little bit janky. And that's just par for the course, unfortunately, in a stable release. Especially this stable release, because they are just coming off the back of a whole series of experimental updates. One other quick change from the last time that I covered the new buildings is the stairs. We now have proper nice looking stairs, and by nice looking I of course mean rickety and cobbled together rather than just kind of like weird ramp type things that we had before. We still got the old icon, but you know, we have the proper stairs at least. We still don't have any doors, we still don't have any windows, and a few other things like that are missing, which I think are pretty important, and hopefully we'll see those coming into the stable release pretty soon. I believe the focus going forward now is going to be on the stable release, so the experimental version is going to be put on the back burner for a while, and they're going to be focusing on implementing features and polishing features in the stable release, which I think is a good thing, and I think we can look forward to seeing some really good stuff happening, and hopefully relatively quickly. Certainly that seems seems to have been the case over the last month or two, and I really hope that it continues at that sort of pace. The last thing that we can just take a look at is the new changes to load. That's level of detail. So as we get closer to my wonderful island of wizarding stuff, you can see various things like the palm trees. Oops, sorry about that. Various things like the palm trees now have much more accurate distant load associated with them. They load in much earlier, and they're actually pretty close to their final models as you get in closer to them. Likewise, the sea bases have good distant load. All of the big rocks and things have good distant load. Oh, look, that's a number 5. I never noticed that before. I've also been playing Subnautica, and in Subnautica I recently noticed that my escape pod was escape pod number 5. I think it was, anyway. What is it with all these 5s? What, is there some kind of deep meaning? Whoops. Okay, look, there we go. What doesn't obviously have distant load at this point are these shipwrecks and things. So there was a bit of a pop in there. But generally speaking, overall, there's been a lot of improvement here. And also, this new mystery about the number 5s. What does that mean? What can it possibly mean? Who knows? If you're not already subscribed to the channel, maybe you should subscribe so that you can find out if and when I also find out in the future. Also, if you have liked this video, please remember to click the like button. It does help, and of course, it encourages me to create more Stranded Deep content in the future. Not that I really need much encouragement, because I love this game. I think it's great, and I will do a new Let's Play series in it. The Island Paradise Season 2 will come in the future. I don't think the stable branch is quite there yet, but hopefully if we see a few more substantial updates over the next weeks and months, then we can look forward to that in the new year. Perhaps, in fact, to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the first Stranded Deep series that I began in February. So that's something to look forward to. But until then, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I have been Weird Wizard, and I will see you later. A land that was naught but mud and trees before the return of the king. We have labored long, and by the sweat of our minion brows, we have cleared the mighty forests, and raised works of wood and stone, towers and walls to hold back the night, shrines burning bright with the power of our gold, that the gods themselves might know of our struggle. We have sown the fields, harvested the woods, and reaped the shiniest of shiny coins.